Broncos country, welcome on in to another video here on the Parker Love Sports YouTube channel. And in today's video, we're going over my preference of a mock draft. This video is going to be of my preferences based on the players that I like and that I would like the Broncos to draft. Now, I am switching things up this year. In years past, this used to be the normal flow, and so there would be a lot of repetitive picks and players. This year, I'm trying to kind of switch things up and go over different scenarios that Broncos fans can prepare for on draft day so that they can see or kind of get an idea in their heads of how different drafts could shape out. But every now and then, I want to do one that I like, who I would take. And this is one of these mock drafts. Now, I will probably do one more right around when the draft is going to start in April, probably a day or two before. But yeah, that's for the future. In today's video, we're going over who I want to take for the Broncos in a 7-round mock draft. So if you do enjoy this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel down below, as the support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into this. And as always, I want to remind you that no matter who you are, Jesus loves you. And let's get this mock draft started. So, with the 20th overall pick, I have the Denver Broncos selecting Luther Burden, wide receiver out of Missouri. Luther Burden is one of my guys. And I guess I really can't say my guys because he is a first-round prospect, and I know a lot of Broncos fans like him as well. But to me, he's kind of my draft crush this year. Every year, everybody has a draft crush that they want their team to get, and Burden is one of those guys for me. To me, he makes the ideal wide receiver 2 for the Denver Broncos. He is a little bit on the shorter side, I would say at 5'11"-ish for a receiver, but he complements Courtland Sutton very well. And to be the wide receiver 2, I think he brings the perfect, opposite skill set to what Sutton brings, right? Sutton's that deep ball, jump ball receiver down the field. Luther Burden, he's going to be a route runner, that separator who's going to pick up a lot of yards after the catch, right? So Burden is going to be a separator who's going to get open so Bo Nix can throw it to him, because we really lacked that last year. And he's going to be your route runner, essentially. So Burden is the number 2. And honestly, he could take over as the potential wide receiver 1 in the future. He has that much upside. So to me, if Luther Burden's there at pick 20, I would have a really hard time passing on him. I know a lot of Broncos fans want Amarian Hampton. And, I'm personally not as high on Amarian Hampton as a lot of Broncos fans are. I wouldn't be mad at the pick, but I'm not as high. To me, I would have a really hard time passing on Luther Burden if he was still there, right? So it's pretty much Luther Burden is my guy at pick 20. And the nice thing about Luther Burden, right, is he brings the skill set of being a separator, picking up the yards after the catch. But he has the diversity if you wanted to play him in the slot. I guess that wasn't the right word, but he has the versatility. Versatility, that is the right word. Luther Burden brings a large amount of versatility where he can play in the slot if you need him to, or he can play on the outside opposite of Courtland Sutton. So if you want to say have Sutton as your X and then play Burden as the other outside receiver, and then say have Devon Bailey in the slot, you could do that. Or you could have Sutton as the X, put Luther Burden in the slot, and then play Mims opposite of Sutton. He does have that versatility as a playmaker. So Luther Burden is one of those guys who I would really love for the Broncos to draft at pick 20. And yeah, you can see in his college career, he played in 38 games, had 192 receptions. He threw for 2,263 yards, averaged 11.8 yards per reception, and scored 21 touchdowns with the Missouri Tigers. Now, I will say the thing is, back in 2023, so not this past college football season, but the season before that, Missouri had a crazy good year. And then this past season, I feel like Brady Cook, he kind of regressed a little bit as a quarterback, so his production went down. And I think that's a big part of that is why he's falling, is the quarterback play, the level of quarterback play going down. And so if he does fall to the Broncos' lap and we get him at 20, big thanks to Brady Cook in Missouri for, not utilizing him a whole lot, because Burden is super talented. I think he should go higher than 20, but in a lot of mock drafts, you see him falling to the Broncos at 20, or even falling past the Broncos. And so to me, I don't think he should be available, but he might. And so Luther Burden is one of those guys I would love to grab in the draft. Here's how I would see the receiving room shaken out. I think Cortland Sutton is your number one, and then Burden is the number two receiver in this, in this receiver room, with the ability to potentially take over as the wide receiver one, maybe midway through the season, maybe at the end of the season, maybe next season he takes over as the wide receiver one. But yeah, I would love to get another weapon in there for Bo Nix. And then you got Marvin Mims, who I really like as well, kind of being that deep threat with his speed. Devon Vele, this bigger slot option. Troy Franklin, who I still have a ton of hope for. I love the upside that Troy Franklin still brings. And then you got Trent Sherfield as the special teamer. Moving on to the second round, we actually have a trade. And here's how the trade works out. But before I get into the details, I just want to say a few things. First of all, if any Jets fans are watching, I'm not saying you're going to trade down and that this is definitely going to happen. This is just a trade that the Broncos are going to make to get closer to the top of the second round. So it might be with the Jets, it might not be. And then if you're worried about the compensation, this isn't exact. This is just kind of a rough estimate. Maybe more has to be given up, maybe less. This is just an outline. I'm not saying this is the exact details, right? So this is just kind of give us an idea of what a trade could look like. But it's obviously not going to be exact. But in this trade, I have the Broncos trading up with the New York Jets. And in this trade, the Broncos get the 42nd overall pick in the second round and a fifth round pick, which is 162nd overall. We don't have a fifth round pick, so we would be picking up a fifth round pick. But in exchange, we would be giving them our second round pick, 51st overall, so they would move down 9 spots, right? And then you would give up our 4th round pick, 122nd overall, and our 6th round pick, 197th overall. So yeah, we lose our 4th round pick, but we pick up a 5th, and then that 6th round pick would be the middle 6th round pick. So it's not the early 6th round pick, it's not the late 6th round pick, it's that middle 6th round pick that we have. And with the 42nd overall pick, I am selecting Ohio State running back TreVeyon Henderson, running back out of Ohio State. And there are a lot of mock drafts where I see TreVeyon Henderson falling to the Broncos at pick 51, but I don't know if that's going to happen with how deep this running back class is. I guess some teams could wait, but with how talented of a back TreVeyon Henderson is, I think he's going to go early day 2 if he doesn't go on day 1. To me, Henderson is one of my guys. You know, I know a lot of Broncos fans are Amari Hampton fans, right? I kind of talked about that. I'm not as high on him as a lot of Broncos fans. Wouldn't be mad at the pick in the first round, but to me, and this is going to be controversial, I actually like TreVeyon Henderson more than Amari Hampton, right? I saw this tweet or X or whatever that posed the question, would Broncos fans be mad if we selected TreVeyon Henderson at pick 20 in the NFL draft? And there were mixed responses. I saw some people saying, yes, I wouldn't mind it. Some people saying, no, that's a little bit too early, like the player a little bit too early. And some saying, wouldn't mind it, wouldn't hate it. To me, I personally wouldn't be mad if we selected Henderson at pick 20. I think the ideal value would be if you traded down with someone like the Commanders or the Ravens, pick up some extra draft capital, move down in the first if you really want to get that 5th-year option, and then pick Henderson in the first round. I think that would be the ideal scenario at the earliest, but picking up a running back here in the second, absolutely stellar. Henderson is a guy with pretty solid vision. He got great breakaway speed. You know, he's going to make people miss in the open field, kind of an elusive back, can mix into the receiving game, but an underrated part of his game, I'm having trouble speaking right now, is he's able to pick up extra blitzers and be a blocker in the backfield to help Bo Nix in protection. So not only would he be an asset in the run game, giving Bo a run game essentially, but he'll be an asset in the pass game, whether he is a pass catcher or he is an extra blocker to help protect Bo. Henderson is a very, very dynamic running back. And if I'm honest, if we got Luther Burden in the first and then we traded up, even if we had to give up more picks for TreVeyon Henderson, to me, I would be happy, right? We did fill a lot of holes in free agency, and you want to have a lot of draft picks because you want to get depth, you want to get hits. But if we got Luther Burden and TreVeyon Henderson, you know, for the most part, I wouldn't care what happened in the rest of the draft. Like, those are two of my guys, two of my favorite players in the entire draft. So if we landed them to be Broncos, I would be ecstatic. During his time at Ohio State, he played in 47 games with 590 rushing attempts. He ran for 3,761 yards, averaging 6.4 yards per carry and 42 touchdowns. Now, these don't include his receiving stats, obviously, and these numbers could be even crazier, even higher. You have to remember that last offseason, using the transfer portal, the Ohio State Buckeyes brought in Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss, and they were a 1-2 punch for the Ohio State Buckeyes. So these numbers could be even crazier, but they split the backfield, split the load, which, he's not going to have a lot of tread on, or as much tread on the tires as he could have if he carried the whole team and had a majority of the carries. So to me, Travion Henderson becoming a Bronco, this one I need to happen. I really, really need this to happen. I know it's a deep running back class and we can get talented running backs down the board, but yeah, I really need Travion Henderson to be a Bronco, same as Luther Burden. Now, here's how I would see the running back room shaping out. Henderson would be the instant starter, the instant RB1 on this team. And then 2 and 3, you can move however you want. You could have McLaughlin as that scat back be your number 2. You could have Estime going into his second year. I might be hinting at a second rookie in this mock draft with that number 4 spot. And then, of course, you got Tyler Beatty and Blake Watson, who, Beatty, young player, looks solid, went down with injury early in the season against the Jets. And then Blake Watson, a guy who I really liked as a UDFA last year, made the active roster, then went to the practice squad. Someone who I really like, but, could get pushed out if we do draft 2 running backs or how the running back room is going to unfold. So this is kind of like the preseason roster of what the depth chart would look like, but the main point right here is that Travion Henderson would be RB1 on this team. Now, moving on into the 3rd round with the 85th pick, I do have the Broncos selecting Joshua Farmer, defensive lineman out of Florida State. Our defensive line, I think, is really, really solid and really, really good, right? You got DJ Jones, John Franklin Myers, Zach Allen. You got Malcolm Roach as a rotational guy, but this is a really, really good defensive line class, both in the interior and as edge rushers. So I would like us to take a shot specifically in the interior at that draft class. And Joshua Farmer is one of those guys who I really like from Florida State. The Seminoles did not have a great college football season this past year, but Joshua Farmer is one of those guys where he's going to eat up blocks and fill gaps, and he's going to force the runner either to, obviously he's going to make a play, or he's going to force the runner to bounce to a different hole for his teammate to make a play, and he does provide a lot of interior pass rush help as well. I really like Joshua Farmer here in the 3rd round to add to that defensive line, and if he's your depth piece, him and Malcolm Roach and their rotational guys, that's really solid. We saw what the Eagles did with that elite defensive line in the Super Bowl, and not just in the Super Bowl, but throughout that whole season, they were dominant. Now, I'm not saying the Broncos are really going to be like that because, of course, you have Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, 2 of the best defensive tackle prospects that have come out in the draft within the past, 5, maybe even 10 years. I'm not going to go that far back, but within the past few drafts, those guys are game changers. So I'm not saying it's going to be like that, but adding Joshua Farmer to a room like that is going to make a very, very scary defensive lineman. And, if you need him to develop, he can develop. He doesn't have to play right away. But I love the upside that Joshua Farmer brings, and I would love for us to take a shot here at the defensive line class as well. Now, this is how the defensive line class would look. We run a 3-4. So the interior line would be Zach Allen, DJ Jones, John Franklin Myers. And then if you were to factor in the edge rushers, it would be Nick Benito and Jonathan Cooper. And then you'd have Malcolm Roach and Joshua Farmer as those rotational guys, rotating in. Malcolm Roach would probably rotate in with DJ Jones, but I could see Joshua Farmer rotating in that defense into that defensive tackle position, or even to one of those end positions. So yeah, I love the upside of Josh Farmer. We pick him here in the 3rd round, and that moves us all the way to the 5th round because we picked up the 5th, but we lost the 4th in the trade up, and I am picking tight end Luke Lachey out of Iowa. Lachey was someone, if you were in my draft streams for last year and we started to look at the future at this draft class, who I pointed out, who I really like the upside of. didn't have the craziest season this past year and, hasn't had the craziest career at Iowa. But, first of all, you look at the track record of the tight ends that Iowa puts into the NFL. You got TJ Hawkinson, George Kittle, Sam Laporta. You can even look at Noah Fant, a guy from last year who really know what he did this past season, but Eric All. You look at that tight end room and you see some guys there. I mean, George Kittle was a 6th-round pick. I'm not saying Luke Lachey is going to be George Kittle, of course, but I do like the upside that Lachey brings. And, we brought in Evan Ingram, so I love the upside that, obviously, I keep saying that. I love the upside Lachey brings, but being able to develop over a few seasons, I think that is the ideal role for Lachey. Tight end is one of the hardest positions and one of the longest developing positions before they hit their stride in the NFL. Not every tight end is going to be this Brock Bowers that makes this instant impact right away in year one. Sam Laporta, it's going to take some time. It's going to take time for a lot of tight ends to develop in the league. And Lachey, I don't think is any different. And 2 years is about the time frame it takes for them to develop. And hey, we signed Evan Ingram to a 2-year contract this offseason. So he's going to be the starter, and someone like Lachey, who's very raw but with a lot of upside and a lot of potential, in my opinion, I think this is the perfect scenario where he has Evan Ingram to learn from, and then you also got another guy like Adam Troutman if you want to run some 12 personnel so he doesn't have to step out on the field right away. I think this would be a great scenario for Lachey. He played in 42 games with the Iowa Hawkeyes, had 74 receptions, 893 yards, averaged 12.1 yards per reception, and scored 4 touchdowns in his career. And here's how I would see the tight end room looking if we drafted Lachey. You would have Evan Ingram, obviously, as a starter. Adam Troutman as that number 2 hybrid type of guy who, good at blocking, good at receiving, not elite or great in any area. He's kind of this well-balanced tight end. Then you would have Lachey to develop. You would have Lucas Kroll and Nate Atkins as well. But we'll see if they made the roster because I do think we're going to draft a tight end this year. So we might have to see who's the odd man out there, but love the upside that Lachey brings. Don't think he's going to be an instant impact, which might upset some Broncos fans if they don't see the instant results. They're going to be saying, oh, we got to cut Lachey when we get to this time next year. But love the upside that Lachey brings, and he's going to be a developmental piece for the Broncos. Moving into the 6th round, I have us selecting our 2nd running back here, and that's Jarquez Hunter, running back out of Auburn. And it's crazy how many talented running backs are going to get pushed down the board because of the depth of this draft. Jarquez Hunter is a very, very talented running back. And, well, I say pushed down the board, but, he could be, if it wasn't so deep, maybe drafted in the 4th, 5th round. But I do like Jarquez Hunter and the upside that he brings while playing at Auburn. I'll be honest, I haven't done a whole lot of study on Jarquez Hunter. I've heard a lot of great things about him, though, through other Broncos fans. I'm trying to get to and study and learn about a lot of these players as possible. But Hunter, I don't think I would assume that he's kind of more the. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to misspeak, but Jarquez Hunter is a very, very solid running back. 49 games with the Auburn Tigers, 539 rushing attempts. He ran for 3,371 yards, averaged 6.3 yards per carry, with scoring 25 touchdowns on the ground. I do think the Broncos, we need to double dip at running back, especially if we don't sign a veteran. Now, if we sign a veteran, whether that be like a J.K. Dobbins or someone like that, maybe we draft only one running back in this class. But as of right now, with no veteran on the roster, I think the Broncos have to address and have to go to the well twice at the running back position in this year's class. So I do think he would be the 4th running back on the team. Again, Henderson would be the 1, and then you could flip McLaughlin and Estime as the 2-3. Heck, you could maybe even put Jarquez Hunter up there if you have given up on Estime and McLaughlin completely. You maybe could put Jarquez Hunter as the number 2 running back. To me, I still like Estime. McLaughlin, I like as a scat back. But yeah, you could argue Jarquez Hunter could be higher on the depth chart potentially. Now, moving to our final pick in the 6th round at pick 210, I have us selecting Jonah Monheim, offensive lineman out of USC. Now, the reason I put offensive lineman is because he is a center. That's what he played last year at USC. but in the past, he has played guard and he has played tackle. So he could play every position, but I see him more as an interior guy. I see him as a guard center at 6'4", 304 pounds, 22-year-old senior at USC. If you needed him to play tackle, I guess you could have him play tackle, but there's a reason a lot of tackles in college move to guard at the NFL level. It's easier to play the interior line than it is to play a tackle. So to me, Jonah Monheim, he would be a depth piece, right? You would have Luke Wattenberg as the center, and then you have Ben Powers, Quinn Miners as your guards. To me, Jonah Monheim would be that next guy up. If he needs to go and play center, he can go play center. If he needs to go and play guard, he can play guard. And then, of course, you have Alex Forsyth behind him, and we'll have to see what happens to him. But I really like Jonah Monheim, and I was surprised to see him still available in the 6th round. I expected him to be a day 3 pick, but still available in the 6th round and towards the end of the 6th round at that. I thought this was tremendous value, especially when we need to grab some depth at the offensive line, specifically the interior. We need some depth at the interior offensive line, right? I like the starters, but the depth I think can use a few more players, and Jonah Monheim adds right to that as a flexible guy who could play center and who can play guard for the Broncos. Now, before we wrap things up, I do have one UDFA signing. Currently, we have no punter, and we could go after a veteran, but I was going after Jeremy Crawshaw, the punter out of Florida. What a name, by the way, Jeremy Crawshaw. But in 53 games, Crawshaw has 190 punts, and he's punted for a total of 8,820 yards, averaging 46.4 yards per punt. And not last season, but the 2 seasons prior to this past season, he actually led in the entire or all of college football, at least Division I, in terms of average punt yards, which I guess the longest average punt yards the previous 2 seasons. So you'd love to see that, and then kicking at a mile high, kicking at altitude, that's going to help the average as well. He's kicking at sea level. So the ball's obviously not going to travel and carry as far, but at mile high, it will carry farther, and he will be able to punt farther, which we need to start using and taking advantage of to pin our opponents deeper with the punts. So, yeah, just wanted to throw Jeremy Crawshaw out there because I do like Crawshaw. I wouldn't draft him. I know a lot of teams have been drafting punters. You look at the Bills and Matt Ariza. Not speaking on that whole situation. I think things got cleared up there. But then you got Jake Camarda, who I think the Buccaneers drafted that same draft class. Don't think I would want to draft Crawshaw even if it was with one of our last picks. I would rather sign him as a UDFA if he's available. Who knows? He could get drafted, but yeah, I just wanted to throw this extra UDFA signing at you guys. But let me know what you thought of this mock draft down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. In my next video, it's probably going to be a mock draft on a trade down scenario for the Broncos. What a trade down from pick 20 could look like. I don't know if it's likely because, George Payton likes to trade down. Sean, not so much. But hey, I just want to go over all the scenarios. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel down below if you are brand new. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Parker, and I can't wait to catch you in the next one. Peace out.